Hello and welcome back to Angie B Crafts. So today I thought I would christen my new Dylusions art journal. So this is a fabulous Dylusions landscape art journal. Recently received. I have done an unboxing of it, so if you want to know a bit more about it, please have a look at that video. And I thought I would just open it on, well, I've opened it on this page, so I'll open it here now and work on this page. I also thought I'd make use of my wonderful AALL and Create stuff that I've just recently got. So I'm going to do a background, start incorporating the AALL and Create hexagonal systems, and then see where we go from there. So I've chosen to go with distress inks today. I've got my lovely new Salvaged Patina, which I think goes well with each of these colours in turn, so I'm hoping that it's going to go well with all of them, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start by just putting down some of this Salvaged Patina. I'm just using a brush. It's a big area, so I've gone for a big brush. That's the simple reason for the size of the brush, nothing technical. Oh, I love how that's going on. The paper in these books is just, it's great. It will take quite a lot of abuse. If you've ever watched any of Diane Reevely's videos, she does quite a lot of spray ink work, an awful lot of spray ink work. So she needed papers that were able to take quite a lot of liquid, and I think she's achieved that with this. So I'm just going to move on to the next colour, which is Picked Raspberry. Now generally when I'm putting colour down, I think, oh, I need to get three areas of each colour. For this I'm just whizzing it on wherever it lands. You can see we're starting to get, as the colours mix, this is one of the things that I love just about playing with colours, we're getting this beautiful purple going on here as we've got the Salvaged Patina and the Picked Raspberry crossing over each other. So we may actually find we don't need to use the Dusty Concord, but I may come back to it. I'm going to go for the Mermaid Lagoon now. Again, I'm just using the same brush. I'm not being picky at all. Now, bear in mind with things like this, if you put, I don't know if you noticed there, if I now put my finger on there, I'm going to get a removal of some of the ink. And the reason for that is, number one, the ink's wet, but also the fact this ink is reactive to liquid, so it's water reactive. But if you think about it, you've got an awful lot of fluid in your hands. So what I would say to consider is where you put in your hand so that you don't get fingerprints. It's quite a simple thing to mistakenly put fingerprints all over your work. I've done it plenty of times. A good way to stop it is to just turn the lid of your ink upside down, and if you need to hold the page, you can hold it just with the lid. So I'm just going in with a smaller brush now so I can get more specific in the areas I'm going into. And because I'm getting layers of colour now, we're getting a really nice deep colour. If you just put one layer on, you're going to see more of what's underneath. You're going to see more of the white, or the cream in this case. If you put on lots of layers, then you're going to see less of what's underneath. I noticed there was a bit of a line here, so I just went in and added a little bit more colour. Right, I'm thinking I want this as a different colour, so I'm going to use a little bit of the purple. Apologies for that squeak. And just break that up a little bit. I'm just holding the edge of my book instead of holding the page. It's up to you how you do it. Everyone develops their own technique. If you're in a book, it's quite often easier to just hold the edge. It depends how precious you are about the page underneath. You can see we're starting to get some little edge bits of colour just on the pages below, but it's very, very little. You wouldn't really notice it unless you were looking. Right, I want a little bit more of the green going in, I think. So I'm actually going to get my raggy and I'm just going to clean off my brush a little bit. Just rubbing it. All I'm doing is just rubbing it on the raggy. Because I've put my raggy on there and I've got a thick layer, I've actually got some texture on there as well, which is always good. So if you want a really smooth mix, you just have to build up the colour. If you go in once and expect the colour to be there, you're going to be disappointed. If you build it up gradually, layer after layer, you're going to get a really good blend, and you're going to get the colour really clearly, as in you're not going to see any of the white underneath. Now I'm quite happy with that. What I do want to do is activate it. So I'm using my Distress sprayer. With this, if you spray it slowly you get big blobs, if you spray it fast you get little blobs. I'm holding it higher up and I'm just misting, so you can still get some little blobs. But as I say, this paper is really, really good for taking water. It's one of the good things about it. One of the techniques that you'll see Diane Reevely use a lot is just going over with the toilet roll or the kitchen roll. It does the faux bleaching, so it lifts the distress inks are water reactive, so it's lifting that off. You also get added colour onto this that you can then use in something else, but because this has got texture, you get some little bits of texture added in that weren't there previously. So just be aware that you've got that as an option. Okay, so we're beginning to get a bit of a background here. I'm going to use number 108, which is hugely hexagonal. So this is its first ever outing. Out you come. Doo -doo -doo. Okay. Now for applying to smaller areas, you can use a smaller brush or you can use this kind of thing. So I'm going to use this, I think, today, which is just basically finger daubers. I've already got a pink one, I've already got a Mermaid Lagoon, I've got a purple, but I don't have one for that. Okay, I'm going to stick with the same colours. I'm going to start. Now your options with this, it's really interesting when you think about your colouring, that you can go the same colour on top of the colour that's already there, or you can do one of the other colours. I'm actually going to see how it is just using the same colour on top, just for some of the smaller areas. So these are really good. They're plastic, just with a little foam thing on the end. I just got these off Amazon. They're inexpensive. They do what you need them to do, which is pick up small amounts of ink and then transfer it onto your work, whether it be for edging or for going through stencils like I'm doing at the minute, or just for colouring smaller areas. So I'll lift that off. We now have hexagons there. So the other area that's got a bit of green, we've got more green down here, so I'm just going to put some little touches. Whenever I say touches I always think of Tracy Evans. She says touches a lot. I love the way she says it. So you can see there we're getting a completely different look of the colour. You can only just see it on there, but it is there. Right, so I'm then going to move on to one of the other colours and start doing the same. So we're going to stick same colour, one on top of the other. I'm going to rotate this just so I can get some of the other areas. And it's just hints here. I'm not doing massive areas, we're just building up a background. That's all we're interested in, and I'm intentionally only using the little pieces. I'm not using any of the larger hexagons at all. Right, there's the pink. We're going to come back to that, do a little bit of purple. You know what, I think I'm just going to take the lids off all of these. That's easier, isn't it? There we go, that's going to be easier. A bit of purple. So it doesn't matter if you do overlap onto other colours, because obviously a lot of the colours have mixed. But we're starting to really build up that background. Swap over for the blue. What I tend to do if I'm using something like this and I'm having to hold a stencil is block it. So I've blocked that against my book, or I might block it against my glass mat, just so that the ink pad's not going to wiggle away, because they sometimes take on a little life of their own and decide to run off across the table. Right, I want a little bit more of the purple over here. I think we'll have a bit of purple up here. Right, so we're beginning to get a little bit of colour. I want a bit more of the green. So you'll see, to put that bit on, I've purposely mixed it with some of the colour that's already on here. I've not been precious. So we're starting to then mix in other colours as well. Put the colours on in different areas. I'm starting to introduce some of the larger shapes as well. It's quite therapeutic doing this. If I'm doing it when I'm not filming, I'll just spend ages going over the area. So what I'm getting here is the colour change, because we're putting green on top of pink. Let's put a little bit of pink on here, and we'll go slightly larger again. So at the minute we're just doing a background of pink down here. So I'm doing 2 at a time with this. I'm not worrying about making sure I'm fully inked up, almost like a second generation version, so we're getting it a bit paler. Plus it's going on to the pink, so it's going to disappear a bit. And you just start adding in the bits that you want. Right, let's choose another colour. I'm just going to work my way along a little bit. No, I'm not going to use purple actually. I'm going to use the Mermaid Lagoon. Down here, have a little bit, and over here, let's do those bits there. So it's really just build it up so it looks how you want it to look. Doesn't matter if you go over areas that have got smaller ones on, you just making it look how you want it to be. I think we need more of the bigger ones up here. I'm purposely not re-inking, I want them a bit paler. I'm going to go back to the pink, but I'm not adding any more pink on. I'm going to do some of these doubles. There's a bigger double. I'm liking the way this is looking. Right, so that's another layer done. So we're beginning to get an interesting background, but at the minute it's not got any content as such. So I've got these 3 stamps. Now I'm not going to use that one. I just don't want to use it today. We've got enough solid colour here. I may come back and change my mind, but at the minute I'm not intending to use it. I like this one and I like this one. I think they go well together. This one to me looks almost like it's an electrical circuit, just with the way the hexagons are all joined together. And you could almost use that as a central piece. But I'm going to stick with it in the background because I've got a plan for what's going to be the centre of this. So I'm going to open these. Again, these are brand new. Now I've not primed these, so I will very quickly show you how I prime my stamps. And this is something that I do whenever I use a new stamp, because it just makes them function better. It was Tracy Evans from AALL and Create who first introduced me to this concept, and I've been doing it ever since. I need some paper. Right, there's a piece of paper, and I need a stamp. And what you do is you put ink on just onto your stamp. I'm using Versafine Clair, which is a permanent ink. and it's just going to colour up the stamp, but then you don't stamp with it straight away. You just give the ink a chance to dry. So I'm going to leave those to dry for a few minutes, then I'll come back and show you the next stage. So the ink on here is now dried. So what I'm going to do is go in with the Versafine Clair again. It doesn't matter which permanent ink you use. Don't use a water-based ink though for this. You're priming it. I mean, there's several different ways you can prime your stamps. This is just the way that I've found works. It particularly works with AALL and Create stamps, but I tend to do it with all stamps. But if you watch Abs from AALL and Create doing stuff, he never does this. He doesn't bother. So it's down to personal preference. If you're finding that you're not getting a good print, it could just be that you need to prime your stamp. And the reason for having to prime the stamp is, as part of the process, no matter which type of clear stamp you have, part of the process is that we'll leave a layer over the finished stamp. So this is kind of just removing it. You can do it just by giving it a wash. You can. Some people use a very fine emery board or a piece of sandpaper and give them a sand. This is just the way I like to do it. I'm not being remotely careful about this. I'm just chucking them on because it's not on a block. This is just for priming. That just wiggled about a bit. I'm not remotely bothered. But I do really like those stamps. Aren't they cool? Don't they look fab? Because the thing with this as well, you can cut bits out. So if you wanted to, you could just cut this section out. Anyway, let me get this back. Now, while I was waiting for that to dry, I just picked up a couple of white tags as well, so I'm going to use those on the page. But let's do this bit now. Right, the smaller one I'm going to use purely as a background stamp, so I'm just going to use it as it is, like this. Okay, so I'm going to stick with using, should I stick with using Distress inks? Right, so I've just picked up some more Versafine Clair in different colours. So I'm just going to start stamping with them and see where we end up. I'm going to stamp the whole of it, or sorry, ink the whole of it, and then just use parts of it. Oh, it's lush. So this is one inking. How good's this? Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. But I'm thinking that I would like to bring in some other background stamps. So this is another one that I absolutely love. It's another AALL and Create one. It's just got numbers, but the numbers have writing on. But I'm going to bring them in, and I'm going to do them in purple. So again, similar thing. It's up to you how careful you are. If you want a specific number, then make sure you ink that number and make sure that's the number that's in the point you want it. But I'm just using this as a background. I'm not even bothered if I don't get whole numbers. Obviously some will be, some won't be. This is coming out quite dark because it is quite a dark purple, but that's fine because this is my background. So it can be at the back and dark bits aren't a problem. So I think there now we're almost got enough in the background. Yeah, I like that. It looks a little bit messy, and I say a lot that all work that I do goes through an ugly phase. This to me is an ugly phase. It looks really untidy, but I'm not worried because I know that I'm going to be bringing other things in and putting them on. And the other things are these two tags. So I'm considering this kind of a setup with the tags. So yes, I've done the background and now I'm going to cover bits up, but that never ever bothers me because if you try and work around something, you might miss a bit, you might not do it quite how you imagined, there might be gaps. I just do the whole of the background and then worry about what's going to go on top, and accept that whatever's in the background is just that, it is behind, it is the back bit. I'm going to go back to using my big brush. I'm going to give it a bit of a clean. It's not going to be a thorough clean, I just want to get off the worst bits, but with the state of my raggy it could well be picking up goodness knows what colours, but I'm not worried. It's par for the course for me to have lots of colours that you maybe don't anticipate. It's just the way I work. So for this, most of it is going to just be in the green. That's my current intention, but that could change once I see it. I might decide I don't like it. Just going to turn that over. If you find that you're getting marks on your paper even when you've not put any ink down, so you're going over with the ink and then it's not attaching to certain bits, it could well be because you've just deposited some finger oil, some bits of oil off your finger. So just consider that if that is something that's happened, and make sure you don't put your fingers on it. Different papers and cards react differently. So you can see this has got kind of a grainy texture to it, but this is smooth card. So it just shows how the ink picks up. In fact, I think, I wouldn't swear to it because I've had this cut for a while, but I think this is potentially super smooth from Pink Frog. Just want to fill in a little bit more down there. There we go. Right, so the other one, which I'm going to use the other brush for, just find a cleaner bit on my raggy, give a little bit of a rub to clean it off, and do the other one in pink. So we're just bringing in the colours, it's just the same colours, bringing them in onto here. So you can see here I've got a bit of a line. Now that, I'm going to guess, is from when I was cutting it, and I used low tack tape, and the low tack tape has left a residue, and the residue is just stopping the ink from hitting the card, so you get that line, which is fine. It's just all added texture, isn't it? Little bits of added texture. I'm adding on lots of colour on this one because I do love picked raspberry. It's one of my favourites, but I have so many favourites. I sound a bit like Leone off the telly. It's my favourite. I don't know, I quite like Mermaid Lagoon as well, and this is becoming a favourite. I'll tell you the spray that I love the most is the Crackling Campfire. I love that as a spray, it's brilliant. Okay, so we have two of these. Now again, I want them to marry into the rest of the page, so I want to bring some edging in. I want these to have a focal image of some description. So I'm going to have a look at my other stamps and I'm going to choose some focal images and then we'll take it from there. Right, the stamps that I've chosen to consider are AALL and Create stamps. I believe these are all designed by Tracy Evans. I have quite a few of hers. I love this little teasel. There is a larger teasel but I don't currently own it. But I like that stamp as well. You can see it's well used. You can tell the ones I like the most because they've got all sorts of colours on them. I've used this one a lot for paper casting, so it's taken on some of the ink colours that I've sprayed on it. Right, I'm going to go for this one. This one possibly, so we'll get it off. I'm going to bring the teasel. Isn't that a fab word? Teasel. I like that. I'll possibly use that one, but I'm not sure. We'll come back to it. And then as a sentiment, I'll worry about the sentiment in a minute. Not sure what I'm going to use for that. I have my stamping block, and I'm going to start, I think I'm going to start with the teasel. I'm going to go with the black. I think black for your focal image is really, really good. I don't always use black, but I do use it a lot of the time. So this is my black number 4, numbers being how many I've used. I still have 1, 2 and 3, and I have number 5 open sitting on the desk next to me, and it's just to do with the level of juiciness. I'm not convinced. In fact, I'm going to go on to number 5 because number 5 is a bit juicier because it's newer. So the newer they are, there you go, you can see more ink going on there, the better they are for stamping. With other ink pads you can re-ink. I haven't found a Versafine Clair re-inker. If anyone does know of one, please let me know. Personally, I haven't found it. Right, where do I want this? I'm thinking that I want it about there, and I like them off to one side, because if you're not trying to be central, it's better than trying and failing. The advantage I've said many times about the Versafine Clair is that it has what's called a long open time. That means it stays wet a bit longer, so it's not going to dry immediately, which gives you time to place it, but it also gives you time to let it soak into the card. So that's why I'm holding it now. I've put the pressure on, the transfer should have happened, and then I lift it off and you get that beautiful image. Isn't that glorious? Right, so that's the teasel. I want some backgrounded ones around it. Let me see. I'll have a think about that. And then I think on the pink one, I am going to use these two. Right, now that's going to go that way, so I'm going to turn it that way for stamping, just because it's easier to hold my stamp block that way. And that's something to consider, is how can you hold your stamp block. If you're finding it a struggle to hold, you're not going to get as clean an image. If you really struggle with stamp blocks, get yourself a stamping platform. I don't use mine very often because I'm okay with stamp blocks, but I know that in the future I can always use my stamp platform if necessary. So this is going to be much cleaner in colouring, well it is at the minute, than the background. Now, I've not finished the background yet, I'm just seeing what I want to do on here first. Now in my mind's eye there's 3 flowers, but they're going to be at different heights, and I'm only using 2 stamps, I think. Yeah, I'm going to stick with 2 stamps, so I'm just going to stamp part of this one this time. Okay, and I'm going to get a piece of paper. I just want a little piece of paper. Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. I don't want this bit to print, so I'm just going to put it there like that as I stamp. You can see just by touching it, it's still got some ink on it, and I don't want that ink to transfer because I don't want the leaf on. There we go. So just popping a piece of paper in there is just stopping that transference of ink. With these stamp blocks, just to make sure that these ones get pressed fully, I can just bend it up a little bit. There are other companies that now do the flexible stamping blocks as well, so don't feel you have to use the AALL and Create ones. They just happen to be the ones I have. But I think they're rather clever. And then we'll go with this one in the middle. I'm just going to make sure it fits. Yeah, that fits. Can we pop it down a bit? Ooh. think we can. Or do I want it higher? Oh, I think I prefer it higher. Instead of just going down the ways, let's have it a bit higher. So you can see this ink pad is much, much juicier than my number 4. So it looks like I'm on to my number 5. I already have 6 and 7 waiting in the wings. There we go. I may have just gone a little bit too high on that one, but it doesn't matter. There we go. Oh no, that's fine. I love these stamps. I've not used them for ages and I do really, really like them. Just give that a bit of a mop up. Right. So I'm going to pop that one to one side and then bring the teasel back in. And I'm going to get another piece of card or paper. A piece of paper. Oh, I'll use the piece that I stamped on before. That'll do. And I'm just going to blot this. And the reason I'm doing that is, if you remember, I said earlier about the fact that this ink has a long open time, so you can sometimes get some transference. There's a very, very small amount. Because this isn't stamping onto acrylic, it's not as much of a problem. If you stamp onto acrylic with Versafine Clair, you either need to heat it with a heat gun, heat emboss it, or at the very least make sure you blot it before you start doing any colour. Right. So I'm going to use some of this. In fact, I'm going to get my little bottle. So I've got the Salvaged Patina re-inker, and I'm just going to pop a dot, well, 2 dots of it there, and I'm going to use it to paint with. Let me find my very fine brush. It'll do. So I'm just going to use this to add somewhere for this to sit. So it's just grounding it. You don't want it to be floating around, so you give it a bit of a grounding. There we go. And I also want to use it on the leaves on here. Now we know that if we use this ink pad on top of the pink, we're going to get purple. So let's see if we get the same on here. We may well do. Oh, we do, which is fine because it means we have purple leaves. Oh, they look pretty. So don't be fearful of experimentation. If you wonder about something, give it a go, see what happens. You can see that's absorbing right in, so we're almost having a little bit of faux bleaching going on. So this time round when I've gone in, because it's bleached out some of the colour because of the liquid, we're getting more of a green. That's interesting, isn't it? I'll do the same on here, put a second layer. We're quite blue on that one. It's quite interesting playing with your different inks and paints and things and just see what they do. The best way to learn. Give it a go. If you've got anything that you'd like me to try with regards to your crafty stuff and you're worried about your stuff getting ruined, let me know. If it's stuff that I have, I'm more than happy to give it a go, as long as it doesn't involve things like chopping bits up, like my gel plates and stuff. I don't think I'd do that. I've got smaller ones, I'll use them. But yeah, if there's anything that you're interested in trying, like can you do this with this ink or whatever, let me know. I'm happy to give things a go. Not a problem. Okay, so what are we going to colour these with? I quite like using crayons. Which crayons should I go for? These were the ones that were on top, so these are the ones I'll use. These are Vicky Booting crayons. These were the first set of art crayons I ever got. So for using these crayons, I tend to, again, I'm using these almost as a water colour. I'm just putting water on and then I'm starting to paint. So again, we're ending up with purple, but it's a slightly different purple because we're using the crayons. Now, artist crayons are different from your Crayolas. Your Crayolas are very waxy. Artist crayons aren't made of wax. Due to the fact I'm not an artist crayon manufacturer, I couldn't tell you what they are made of, but I do know it isn't wax. But they're water soluble. I've got a few different ones and they all react a little bit differently, so again, get to know your different products. Okay, I'm going to go in with a pink on this. This is sparkly pink. And I just think it's going to add a little bit. One thing with jelly roll pens is they're actually water soluble. So if you want the look of a glisten but you want to spread your colour out a bit, you can. They're water reactive. They don't stay water reactive forever, it's only when you first put them down. So if you want to do something that involves reacting them with water, you need to do it a bit at a time, because if you do a lot and then come back to the first bit, you'll find it doesn't react anymore. So be warned Don't do a whole piece and then expect to be able to go back to the beginning and start adding water, because that won't work. Quite liking the way these are starting to look. Kind of like this just on its own with a sentiment. Right, I want to put some extra colour on here. So you can't really tell, but this is actually a pink. So this was the pink that we used, and this one was just with the darker blue, but they come up, because you're not on white, they come up quite shimmery and quite pale. I'm thinking lime green, why not, and just put some little bits on here of sparkle. Sparkly sparkle. We can't have one flower that doesn't have sparkle, can we? That would just be wrong. Oh, you know what's happened there? I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera or not, but the sparkle has actually, the pen's actually gone into where the crayon is, so we've got a little deeper line, the crayon's coming through, and then we have the sparkle on top, so we get added extra. I like that. Right, I got the yellow out because I thought I'd just add some yellow dots like this and like this, and I'm also going to add some of the black in as well. It's not actually a true black, it's actually a dark brown. They don't have the colours written on them, I don't think. No, they don't. So I couldn't tell you what the colour names are. But I do know the metallics, because they're the only ones I've got, with the exception of my white one, which isn't metallic. There we go. I'm going to use a little bit of this. Oh, we didn't do green on there, did we? Use the paler blue up here. There we go, and a little bit here, and we're just going to spread that out with a bit of water. There we are. Quite like these. Right, so that's one of the pages, one of the pieces to go on the page. So now we're going to go back to our teasel. So this is now totally dried at the bottom. What colour should we do this? Well, I'm thinking that we could do it in pink, but I don't want to use crayons with it. I want to use something else to colour it, and the thing that comes to mind is my watercolour pencils. It took me so long to get into watercolour pencils, and now they're probably the thing that I use the most for colouring. So these are my Derwent Inktense. They are fabulous. That's the best way I can describe them. I'm going to go with pink and purple on this, I think. We've got pinks and purples on the rest of the image, and we'll have a little bit of, we don't really have a green that goes, we'll have that green. Alright, we'll do the green first. and then get the water brush, well, a brush with water on it, it's not a water brush, and we're just going to extend that out so it's darker nearer to the stem, which if you think about how it would actually be darker nearer to the stem. If you want a little bit darker, you can, again, like you do with the crayons, just extend it out. And I love this. I think this is really therapeutic for me, just using watercolour. These brushes are just, I love them. I have got a couple of other watercolour brushes that I just got as cheapy ones and I was not impressed, but these ones I love. Okay, we're going to have pink and purple for the top part of the teasel. So I'm going to start off putting down the pink and adding on some water. I'm going to get a slightly bigger brush, it's a bigger area, and just extend that out so it's going to be darker where you've actually made contact, and where you've not made contact, I mean with the pencil, where you've not, you're just going to be eking that colour out a little bit. And then if you want to, again, you can see I do this option a lot because the wood around it has gone a different colour, because it's gone the colour of the pencil. So these are not true to life at all, because as far as I'm aware, teasels tend not to be pink. And then I'm going to add in some purple. So with the purple, I'm just going to put little bits of it down at the bottom and then pull them out a little bit, just to spread that colour up. I do love these pencils, they're brilliant. So while I've got these pencils out, I'm actually going to get the original page back as well, because we're going to use them on that, because we've not quite finished that background. Oh, I'm liking the way that looks. Now with this one, what I also want to do, right, I'm going to come back to that one. Let's do the page. While we've got other bits out, let's use them on the page as well. So one of the things that you can do with watercolour pencils that I love is you can use them to edge stuff and to add depth. So what I'm going to do is come in on these. Now these, remember, are done with Distress ink, so they're water reactive anyway, so as soon as we add water we're going to get a change. But we can start adding a deeper colour like this, and we can extend it round, soften the edges, give it a bit more 3D effect. And you've got the choice, you can either drag it in as I'm doing on this one, or you can drag it out and give it more of a drop shadow. Right, let's do a couple of others. Or you can just leave it if you want to, you can just leave it with an edge like that. So on this one you can see we've got an awful lot of reaction here, so I'm just going to colour that in. The only reason I'm doing that is so we don't get like a water line, so it's going to bleach the colour out a bit, but it's going to be across the whole of it, whereas on this one we're adding the colour. I've been a bit more careful with where I've placed it. If we do start to get the faux bleaching effect, which I don't want on this, I'll just extend it inwards. And then I'm going to use a bit of the pink and bring it in on this one. So it's just about adding bits where you want them to be. Entirely up to you where you want them to be. If you're not comfortable doing this, you can always do it through the stencil. so that you know that you're careful with where the colour's going to go. You can just do what I'm doing and play. I think the best thing that I like about creating is that it's really just playing every day, which makes me happy. Remember with your watercolour pencils is the colour you put down can change when you add water into it, can become deeper, so don't be surprised if it doesn't quite look the same when you add it onto things. So getting a more watercolour effect, we've got a little bit of leech in there, so I'm just going to draw that in a little bit just so that there's not a distinct line. A little bit going on there. Water. I just keep dabbing it on my raggy just so it's not overly wet. So I was hoping to not have to do it on this one, but it just leached in a bit more than I wanted, so I'm just going over the whole thing just to remove that watermark. So you can keep going as much as you want on that. Now I know roughly where my other pieces are going to go, so I think I'm happy with what I've got there. Right. So now I'm just going to do a quick check, oops, as to where everything's going to go. So I want my teasel here, and I want this at the bottom. Do I want that straight? No, I don't want that straight, that's boring. No, I don't really want to cover it up. Quite like that one straight and that one at an angle, but I want this to be the focal point, so I almost want to highlight it with a circle. So I'm going to get a circle and I'm going to just highlight that area. That's roughly where I want it to be, and then I'm going to get my dauber and I'm going to go with the purple. Do I want the purple? No, I want the blue. I'm going to go with the blue. I'm not adding any extra ink on, and I'm starting on the circle and going off. I'm just doing it gently. I'm not going far, and it looks like I'm not doing anything. I'm hoping that when I take it off, you'll see that I've done something, she says with optimism. So we're just starting on the circle and we're just gradually adding little bits of colour. And there you have it. So that's now in a spotlight. If you want to make that more obvious, you can choose to go around it again. You can, I'll show you. I'm just going to place that back on. I'm going to add a tiny bit more ink. That's it. And then I'm just going to go back on. So you can see straight away it's going to be much, much darker. And that's fine. Most of the ink is going to be on the circle, not on your piece. And that is what you're after. It's a highlight, it's a halo effect you're going for. So you don't want too much on the work. I've smudged a bit there, but never mind. And what I'm going to do is with the same colour, there we go, I prefer that actually. I'm actually going to go around the edge of it. So I'm just going to edge, like frame this, add more ink for this, starting off and then going on. But you can see there's a distinct change in the colour tone in that I'm pressing harder and I'm making sure that I've got enough ink on. I tend to come in a little bit on my corners. And we're just going to go all the way around. So it starts to look different. When you add these little bits on, it starts to look different. It starts to look more fun, it starts to look less stark. If you want a more gentle edge, you can choose to use a brush, or you can use a sponge, or you can just edge it doing that. But I like the colour to actually come onto the piece. This isn't overly grungy for me, which is quite good. I'm going to look at this now, and I just want to decide, do I want to do that edge? I think I do. I might regret this, but I'm going to do it. There we go, I'm quite liking that. Pop the lid on there. I want to add something else in here. I'm not happy with how that looks as a base. So what I'm going to do is use the purple pencil and just come in. So it's almost shading it. And I'm purposely not going to mix that in. And I'm doing it in lines rather than, I'm doing it horizontal rather than vertical. I'm going horizontal so I can just adjust my width. I'll go out a little bit more on that side. Darker at the top and then coming out. Oh, that's better. Right, I'm going to edge this one. To edge this one, I'm going to use the purple. So again, I'm going to use my little sponge and I'm just going to come in off the edge. Colour in those corners a little bit. Again, this is down to personal preference. Some people like it to be very, very stark and just have a very slight edge. I like a good edge, and I particularly like my corners coloured. And I think on pieces like this, these two tags are cut out using, I've actually got the dies next to me. It's a set of dies, this set of dies from Studiolight. They're the Grunge dies, or from the Grunge set. Can't remember what the exact name is, but they're brilliant. The size of these is so, so good. A lot of tags are smaller, and I also love the fact that you get this paper effect. There's another one that has a torn out page effect rather than just two hooks. I love them. I think they might have been designed by Lou Withers, I'm not sure, but I do rather like them. Oh, my dies are all going to fall off now. Just let me move them. There we go. So you may think when you look at this, oh, you've got a nice neat area. I haven't. My desk is chaos. What you don't see on camera is utter chaos. It's not quite as dark up here, so I'll just darken it more. And what I would say is, if you're going to edge it like this, do it bit by bit. So do a little bit and then say, oh, actually, I want it a little bit more, and then add more in. Because if you put too much on, you can't take it away. But if you put too little on, you can add it in. Okay. Right, so we have these two pieces. Now I'm actually wondering if I want both pieces on this page or not. There's a chance that I don't. There's a possibility I might just have one. No, I want them both. I want that one over the top. Right, I'm going to stick them in before I change my mind. If I can get the lid off my glue, there we go. So this is, as I say, my first page in this journal. My intention at some point is to do a full 2-page spread. So I'll obviously have to put my camera a little bit higher for that so that you can see it. But this is the very first page, and I love the first page in a journal, even if I hate it. I've got one journal, in fact I'll show you in a minute, that I've done, and I really hate the first page I did in it, and it was the very first page of the journal as well, which I don't do anymore for this very reason. Right, they're stuck in, so they're not going anywhere. It's actually in this pink pig journal that I used as a mop-up. The first page in this journal I really dislike, which I shall show you. So I didn't do this on camera, it's this, so ignore this, but it was this page. So it's using an AALL and Create owl and some other AALL and Create background stamps and things, and I hate it. And then I stuck these on. These are little bits of acrylic skins, and you can see they're then stuck to the page opposite, so they're covered in that, and I really don't like that page, but I know that I can come back to it and do something with it, and I've just not got round to it. I've got some ideas, but I've not gotten round to it. I know that I need to colour these up so they're no longer looking like this and edge it and things, but I just don't like it. There's another one using the AALL and Create stuff. Not that I'm a fan. Ha ha. Oh, another one with AALL and Create. Apparently this is, oh, that's got AALL and Create on as well. In fact, that one's AALL and Create as well. Sorry, I'm just flicking through my journal here. Right, put that away, Angela. Right, so we're nearly there. Right, now I can easily turn my journal, which makes it much easier for putting on the white lines. So I add white purely as a highlight. I am purposely not remotely bothered if it's a broken line, a solid line, starts and stops, straight, wonky, doesn't matter. It's just to remind you that it's highlighted, and it can really finish a piece off just to add a little bit of white. I remember the first time I started discovering that this was something that you could do, I was utterly mesmerised that adding a little bit of a white highlight could have such an impact on what you were making. It didn't make sense, it's just white, but it does actually make a huge difference. Right, I'll put some white on here and up here. I want some up on here as well. What you'll find with the white as well, whether you use a jelly roll or a Posca, is if you're putting it on top of something that's water soluble, an ink that's water soluble, that isn't permanent, that it's going to take on the colour. I'm putting this bit on top of crayon and it's not taking on the colour of the crayon as much because the crayon is not as water soluble, it's not as sensitive. Just feeling these need to be a little bit thicker, so I'm just going in again. Again with these ones, not quite thick enough. Sometimes you can try doing this and you're in the wrong light, and you sometimes pick your piece up and you go, oh my word. It's like when you see people who've put the makeup on with the wrong lighting on and they suddenly have all of the sculpting is clearly visible. I've done that a few times. Okay, now I do also want to add in some lighter areas on these. So you can see a lot of the ones that we coloured are gone because of how we've actually covered them up, but that is absolutely fine. It's just the way of it. So don't ever feel that you've covered something up and oh my word, that's a terrible thing to do. Now the other thing that I want to do, I want to actually go around this with my fine liner. Right, I'm not sure these colours on here are in, oh actually, yeah I do want this one, I think this one's fab. this one here is passport stamps. I'm just going to pop it at the bottom there, but I'm not going to do it as a whole. It's one of the things I love about washi tape. You could just use bits of it. Right, I've just stuck a bit of that on my light out of the way so that I can stick this down at the bottom. I'm just burnishing that a bit. I'm going to stick the other bit up at the top, burnish it a little bit. Oh, I forgot to just tear that end a little bit. Useless piece of information from me. That's where I was born, Dublin. So there you go. Right, I'm also going to put on, see, I want to put another piece of that on now because the rule of threes, darn. Right, I'm going to put another piece down this side. Oops, doesn't want to stick. Well, it does, it just wants to stick to my fingers instead of the page. And I'm going to actually back that on to the other side of it, onto the next page. There we go. And then I'm going to use this as my sentiment. So there's a few sentiments on here. Right, I'm going to put possible, you know, because possible is something that I'm having to think of a lot at the minute, that something is possible in life as I make changes in my life, and I think that is the perfect sentiment for on this page. I want it going across that way, I think. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. Right, black fine liner. I'm going to go with my Jane Davenport brush nib size 2. I like these pens. I like the brush nibs because they're a little bit thicker. But I like these pens. They feel nice to use. Now, I was told that they'd write over anything. I found a few things that they won't, but that's okay, because when I want to use something over other products, I just use a different pen. And down here, so I've not gone over my washi tape, because then it looks like it's as an afterthought. And I'm also going to have to, just because I'm me, go around these, but I'm going to go around them with a finer one, so I'm going to get a brush 1 for that. So brush 1 is really, really fine. I don't know if you can see that on my thumb. It's very, very fine indeed. And I want to go around these. Just need to adjust my position again to make it easier. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know I am very much a fan of edging with a black fine liner. I am also very much not a fan of attempting to do a straight line. So I tend to hold my pen higher up, I tend to hold it very lightly, and I tend to give no thought if there's a wobble. And on this one, I'm just going to do some of my scribble. And do the same on this. I'm just going to go around the edge a little bit, nice and wobbly. Just going to go right the way over the top of the stems, because most of the stems are just a fine line anyway. And over we go. And again, I'm going to do There we are. Right, I believe that is it. I actually really like how that's come out. I like it when you start a new book because you're trying something new. I've used new stamps on the background, new stencils on the background, new washi tapes. I like new stuff, but I also love bringing out things like these stamps that I haven't used for ages and amalgamating them all. Everything that you've got can work with each other. You can just fiddle about with it until it does. So I hope you like that. Please feel free to subscribe. Leave any comments. If you've got anything that you want to know about, just leave a question and I'm more than happy to do a video on it. Have a look at me on other social media, Angie B Crafts on Facebook, Angie Mary B on Instagram. And thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Bye.